It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of October 9th, 1992. 3 movies to look at today, some notable movies in particular, so let's not waste any time, let's just jump on into it and start off with the biggest new release of the weekend. That's Steven Seagal in the action movie Under Siege. So Under Siege is arguably the best Steven Seagal movie that he's ever been in. I mean, it's a great movie overall. It is very much Die Hard on a battleship, but it's a fun Die Hard knockoff. It really is. Mostly because of Seagal, who does the best that he can in this situation. The direction of Andrew Davis, who Harrison Ford was so impressed with with the way that he handled this movie that he would ask him to direct The Fugitive not too long after this. But also you get 2 really good villain performances from Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones, whenever you put him in a movie, he's always going to put his A game in there, even in something as bad as something like some of his worst movies that we'll delve into down the road. But yeah, overall, this is a fun movie. It's a movie that really works for what it is. It is obviously a Die Hard knockoff, but it accepts the fact that it is, and you're just having the time of your life watching it. And it's just a ton of fun to watch. The action sequences are great to watch. The visuals overall are impressive. Also of note here, this was actually, when this movie came out, they didn't screen this to critics prior to the release of the film. And usually when you do that, the studio doesn't really believe in it. They're just putting it out there, hoping that the audiences will like it enough. And at the time, this was actually the most successful movie that had not been screened for critics prior to release. So, I mean, it just goes to show you that sometimes you've seen these movies that don't get any critics to watch it beforehand, and then sure enough, afterward, it turns out the movie was actually pretty damn good, and this was no exception. That's pretty much all I got for you on this one. Under Siege is pretty much one of the best movies that Steven Seagal has ever been in. It's a fun action movie from the 90s. What more can you say about it? It's good fun all around. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and it's another one of the surprisingly many Christopher Columbus movies we got in 1992, and this one comes to us from Ridley Scott, and it's 1492, Conquest of Paradise. It's certainly a lot better than the trailer that they did after that, which, if you ever seen Tropic Thunder and you see the parody trailer for the Robert Downey Jr. character, I feel like they took the inspiration from this trailer that they did after this one, but because, man, the music choice on this trailer that I can't unfortunately show you on here, so I'll put a link to it below. That was not a good music choice right there. I mean, but to the movie's credit, though, I'll give it this. It was a whole lot better than Christopher Columbus: The Discovery was. But that's not really saying a whole lot, honestly, because most of the Columbus movies it's pretty much all the Columbus movies that came out in 92 were not that good. You had, like I said, you had this one, you had Christopher Columbus: Discovery, which we already talked about, you had Carry On Columbus, and then you had the animated Magic Voyage with Dom DeLuise as Christopher Columbus, and like I said before, none of them really transpired all that well. The interesting thing about this movie in particular is that there was at least an attempt to tell a story here. I mean, you could definitely tell with this movie they did take it a little more seriously. They got an actor who resembles more closer to Christopher Columbus than the guy that they got in Christopher Columbus: The Discovery. I mean, Gerard Depardieu does the best he can with the material given to him. You can actually believe the supporting performances in here. Sigourney Weaver, Armand Assante. The locations in here feel like they're not out of it. They don't feel fake, is what I'm trying to say. And there is an effort to at least try to make a story out of this. It didn't really work all that well, but I gotta give Ridley Scott credit where credit was due. At least he did try his best to make something that was at least trying to be something that constitutes as a decent movie all around. I don't think like I said, it didn't work all the way through, but there are some good elements to it, as I mentioned before. Vangelis, who's best known for the Chariots of Fire score, did a pretty good job with the theme with the music overall in this. He did a very good job with that. So overall, 1492 is not a good movie, but it isn't a bad movie either. It's just a movie that has good intentions to it, has some high ambitions. They just never really went the way I think Ridley Scott wanted it to go. I think there was a much better movie here there's a much better movie here if they took another time to put it more into the script. Maybe they would have had something, but I feel like they rushed this one out because they wanted to get it out in time for the anniversary of when Columbus discovered America, because this was, of course, the 200th anniversary of 500th anniversary, I should say, of when Columbus discovered America. And, like I said, not a bad movie, but certainly not a movie that really lived up to what I think Ridley Scott intended for. Has some good intentions, some high ambitions, but it just didn't make it. It just didn't work all around. That's what I'm trying to say. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Brad Pitt in A River Runs Through It from director Robert Redford. So for Robert Redford, this was actually the first movie he had directed since the Malago Beanfield War, which I guess came out in theaters in 1988, but was largely forgotten because I knew nothing about it. I don't think anybody else really knew anything about it. But before that, he did Ordinary People, which of course was the Best Picture winner of 1980. Got a directorial Oscar for Robert Redford himself. And this movie, A River Runs Through It, kind of restarted his directorial career, because after this he did Quiz Show, The Horse Whisperer, The Legend of Bagger Vance, Lions for Lambs. This kind of jump-started his career again as a director. And most notably, this movie is the film that launched Brad Pitt as this is the performance that was his career-making performance, even though he was very critical of his own performance in the film. He said that Robert Redford made a quality movie, but he didn't think he was skilled enough. He thought he could have done better. Maybe it was pressure on the part of playing someone who was a real person and not wanting to let Redford down, which, I mean, I guess it worked, because look at where he is now, 30 years later. He's an Academy Award-winning actor, and after this movie, he slowly but surely has become one of the great actors that we have right now. Usually he doesn't make a bad movie. Once in a while he will, but he usually does put his all into the movies that he's in, and this movie is no exception. He's playing a very good character in here. He is one of the strongest elements to it. The cast overall is great. Craig Schieffer, Tom Skerritt, Brenda Blethyn, Emily Lloyd, Edie McClure is in this. It's an overall enjoyable movie. It's a good period piece film. It doesn't feel too Oscar baity at all, even though that trailer kind of does a little bit. Kind of reminded me a little bit of how The Prince of Tides felt, but it is a decent film all around. It's not the best Robert Redford movie. I would say that Quiz Show is probably my favorite movie that Redford has directed. I think that's the best movie he's made. We'll delve more into that one when we get to 1994, but as far as this movie goes, it's a very enjoyable film. It does a good job of adapting the book that this is based off of, and it is a fun movie it's a good movie to watch to see these performances carry the film. It's a very good film overall. If you haven't seen River Runs Through It and you want to see some good Robert Redford movies he directed, definitely check this one out. So on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll look at the movies of October 16th, including Candyman with Tony Todd and Virginia Madsen. We also have Kevin Kline and Kevin Spacey in Consenting Adults, Joe Pesci and Barbara Hershey in The Public Eye, and Robert De Niro in Night in the City. So 4 movies to look at next time around. We'll delve into those films next time. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, take care.